I don't wanna be anything other than what I've been trying to be lately. All I have to do is think of me going over my notes. Don't mind me. One Tree Hill, Season 2. Let's get on with the analysis. My name is Zach, I'm your cult boyfriend, and I have fallen head over heels, madly in love with One Tree Hill. I think it's fucking really fun and crazy and often terrible, but also this show makes a habit of being terribly phenomenal as well. One Tree Hill. Let's get into it. Make sure to watch the analysis that was done on this channel of season 1 before you watch this one, because I'm going to be building off of my points, my thesis, my original ideas there. So definitely check out that video. Here's a card for it. The link will be in the description as well. It's a pretty good video. Season 2, though. Wow. Well, as I said in my first season analysis, this was my teen show. This was on when I was a teenager. The first season came out when I was 13, so this is something that like I grew up with. And granted, I didn't know a whole lot about it when it was actually on the air, but I definitely knew the cast members. I even knew the character dynamics. I knew about it, and I probably saw some of it. I definitely dated girls who watched it, but watching it now as a Jesus, fuck me, I'm old. A 32-year-old, beautiful, young, chiseled Roman god of a man, I am noticing so many things about how this show truly informed my generation. I'm able to identify behaviors and attitudes, traits, almost like signature emotional moments that were learned from One Tree Hill. Like I can definitely see in my life people who really connected with Brooke and took part of her personality and the way she would behave, the little gestures that she would do, and incorporated that entirely into their lived experience. I definitely know people who thought they were Nathan, like, and specifically thought they were Nathan Scott, not just an archetype. In actuality, these are people in my generation who learned how to behave and how to process things like grief, heartbreak, and success from One Tree Hill, and that's really fascinating to me, to be honest. I'm watching it, I'm going, "Oh my god, that's her. That's that girl. That's her. This is where she got that from, huh?" Or I even see like, "Oh, so he was going through that, and he was using this mode of physical and emotional expression that he learned from this show." If only I had watched this show then, I would have been able to understand the emotional markers and signifiers that they were trying to express to me. But while I definitely knew of One Tree Hill and knew exactly the dynamic of characters on it for the most part, I didn't actually watch it. I was too cool being like a punky little goth wannabe. I mean, sorry, I was busy being the coolest fucking guy in the whole school. You know me. You know how I do. Your cult boyfriend has never had a loser day in his life. Take that, you dorks. Season 2. So, there's a lot. There's a lot. It did get more and more and more excessive, more absurd. Um, in a lot of ways, though, it got better. Honestly, I'm gonna start with what I thought was the strongest dynamic, the strongest ongoing plot line of season 2, which is Lucas and Dan, the father and the prodigal son. In the first season, I established that One Tree Hill has a morbid obsession with punishing its characters, for punishing these archetypes for logically following through with an arc, with what they are supposed to do. One Tree Hill, the writers and the showrunner would punish the characters for actually trying to grow. And it felt almost like a bad joke. Every time someone did something that made them happy, they would be punished for it in some nearly cosmically destined way, and these characters all seem to act as though they're being redeemed, as if everything that they do is an act of redemption, and already with teenagers, everything is life or it's death anyway. And when you get these, I mean, every time that Lucas or Peyton speaks, it's like they're trying to be redeemed in the eyes of a god who is completely absent from the storytelling mechanics, and it's really fascinating. But Lucas versus Dan, Lucas versus the devil, two completely opposed philosophies and psychologies battling each other, taking each other down, a knockdown, drag out, fucking brawl of emotion. It's beautiful because the plot line starts off quite tenderly with Dan recovering from the heart attack that he experienced and had suffered at the end of the first season, and Lucas is there to help Dan, there to help him and try to get him back on his feet. There are sincere outreaches. There are sincere attempts between these two to form a relationship. There's a great deal of loss that can be communicated through that kind of emotional outpouring that ends up becoming very confrontational. And of course, throughout the course of the season, you know that Dan is a guy who believes that revenge, the dish, not only best served cold, but possibly frozen. It's a long con. He's getting his revenge on Keith and Deb, on his brother for sleeping with his wife. He's trying to get revenge on both of them and destroy them completely and totally in the most Machiavellian, twisted, devilish, and satanic ways possible, to be clear. And Lucas finds out about that. And Lucas takes it upon himself to figure out a way to take down the devil once and for all. They have these wonderful moments where Lucas expresses an interest. You know, he's a reader, so he reads like Call of the Wild through here. And Dan says, London, now that's a man's writer. You know, and while both Lucas and Dan are definitely men, their ideas of masculine virtue couldn't be more opposed. Lucas is also interested in the works of Arthur Conan Doyle, specifically Sherlock Holmes, and I think that Dan gives him a copy of The Final Problem. Of course, Dan is a big fan of Professor Moriarty, and Lucas is like, you know, that's the villain, right? And he says that's just one perspective. The Final Problem, of course, features the death of both Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty over Reichenbach Falls. Uh, the Final Problem, this show's final problem, will always be the problem of fatherhood, the problem of masculine virtue, the problem of privilege, and the problem of the disenfranchised and the disenchanted, the disillusioned, and the war that the outcasts and outsiders wage with those who create the world that they live in. Well, it's fascinating because Lucas is an incredibly smart character, but Dan will always be smarter because he's that much more powerful than Lucas in every conceivable way, except for one that we're going to go into here, and it's the way of virtue. They discuss the final problem and deconstruct it to a certain extent, and they disagree about the dynamic between Moriarty and Holmes. But Lucas makes the best points. Lucas says he sacrificed himself to bring down the bad guy. That's the point Arthur Conan Doyle was trying to make. Let's extrapolate that. Let's transpose Lucas's reading of Sherlock Holmes onto his character's arc in season 2. Lucas and his endless addiction to self-sacrifice. Lucas is constantly, he's addicted to self-sacrifice. It's possibly even an obsession to him. But that endless addiction to self-sacrifice has been weaponized by the second season, as if the preceding punishment was all a warm-up for the showdown that will lead to a moment of clarity, a showdown between himself and his father. And there are scenes near the end of season 2 that are ridiculously fucking intense with Lucas snooping around Dan's office. Side note, sidebar, um, Dan's fucking window, dude. People like breaking that shit. Oh my god. Okay, back to the analysis. Season 2 gives us a reason why these characters are punished so heavily and why specifically someone like Lucas is punished seemingly without remorse over and over and over again by the writers of the show. And I think it's something that possibly Peyton said, but I think it is most applicable to Lucas's arc. Believing in the possibility even when life has given you every reason not to believe. That's Lucas. And this season, Lucas gets punched in the face so many fucking times, and like nobody ever cares. I mean, I do, King. I'm sorry for you, Luke. But he gets punched in the face so many times, he's punished over and over again. His first love interest is gay. Her brother beats him up. Sucker punches him to death. Nathan punches him in the face in jail for simply trying to be a virtuous brother. And Dan completely humiliates him. Dan destroys him. Dan wins. Did I include that? Dan wins this showdown. He wins this game and humiliates this archetype further, but there is a truth to the self-sacrifice. There is a truth to Lucas's masculine virtue. Dan is a maximalist masculine person. Dan is inauthentic. Dan is insincere. Dan needs Lucas. Lucas does not need Dan. Lucas wins because he can walk away, because he has enough of a peculiar kind and a very tender and truthful kind of masculine virtue to be able to identify the devil for who he is, accept that the devil is his father, that he is the son of a tormentor, and he's able to turn around and walk away, knowing that he lost. But a lot like Sherlock, I think Lucas pulled Dan down with him to the emotional depths of the most punished character on the show. And he sacrificed his own emotional well-being in order to do it. I think Lucas is a very heroic character in the second season. I think he's definitely a teen idol worth aspiring towards. Um, Lucas was intensely good. I think that Chad Michael Murray gave the best performance of this season. I think his arc was the most fascinating. He's relentlessly being punished for trying to simply do virtuous things. I shouldn't really say simply. He makes these grand gestures. He goes out of his way to sacrifice his own mental health, his own emotional well-being, his own heart to try to help others. And every single time, no one ever thanks him for it. No one, except for Anna, except for Felix's sister, who he was dating for a short while. But at first, no one cares. No one thanks him. It's a thankless role being a hero in a post 9/11 teen universe. Because that's what's also fascinating about One Tree Hill. It takes place in a post 9/11 universe where the human condition, as experienced through the eyes of a teenager, is an unpredictable one, is an unfair one, is a traumatic one, and is one that is constantly being written and rewritten. Virtue Virtue could be a constant in this film and this television show's philosophy. Virtue could be unchanging. If virtue is constantly involving self-sacrifice, then while the archetype itself is forced to grow through punishment, victory eventually will find Lucas. It has to. In a world where everything seems unpredictable and human life is just random encounters, random experiences. I think One Tree Hill is trying to not hyper fetishize, but hyper fixate on the individual, on Lucas, and say, you do matter. What you do on this earth in Tree Hill matters. Your failures are significant. And when you're able to accomplish, your accomplishments will set the sky on fire. I loved Lucas in this season. Peyton. Ah, Lucas is not exclusive to punishment. Every character is punished. Let's go to Peyton now. Lucas and Peyton are my favorite characters. I actually think that Lucas and Peyton are one of the greatest romantic couples on the planet. We didn't get much of that here in this season, but that's fine. They were both trying to go through their own shit, and Lucas actually had a brilliant plot arc to work through, and I really loved engaging with it. I vibed with Lucas the most this season. In the first season, I vibed with Peyton the most easily. Just this girl who's She reminded me a lot of myself when I was in high school. A girl who's completely into, like the Ataris and Dashboard Confessional and No Effects. Yeah, this show is trying to gaslight me into believing that No Effects is hot girl music, which I'm fine with. I just wish that was actually true. She does quote No Effects in this season as well when she's trying to help Anna come to terms with her sexuality. She quotes No Effects lyrics to her, which is really cool. But she reminds me a lot of myself when I was younger. And in the first season analysis, I said she's going to be a Bright Eyes girl. I just know it because I was a Bright Eyes guy, and she definitely became one. She's holding that I'm Wide Awake It's Morning vinyl. Oh my God, that's awesome. My very first concert was the I'm Wide Awake It's Morning tour for Bright Eyes. So man, I just on a very visceral and clean and understandable level, I vibe with Peyton a lot. But One Tree Hill doesn't understand what cocaine is, right? Like, for some reason, it must be a deliberate misunderstanding of what cocaine is or does because it starts off with Peyton developing a drug problem, and we never even get to see her have fun with the drug itself. We just they treat cocaine like it's the most addictive substance on the planet, as if it's heroin or crack or something, and she just loses her mind. But there's a really brilliant moment where I feel like, man, maybe season two is a little bit better than season one because there are these moments of, sadly, not clarity for Peyton because that's what she wants more than anything else, but these moments of poetry, honestly, when Peyton is grappling with addiction, with wanting to do a bump or something. And I mean, One Tree Hill treats cocaine. It handles, it demonstrates cocaine abuse like it like a psychopath would. It makes no sense, but she's battling the desire to do a line of coke, and she's cutting it up on a blank CD. And she's definitely the kind of girl, like I was the kind of guy who made countless amounts of blank CDs that were definitely never listened to by anyone that I gave them to, or seldom were. But these blank CDs, and she's cutting it up on it, and then she sees her reflection in the back of the blank CD, and she's looking at it, and it obliterates her, it disgusts her, and she throws it at the wall. So what is that saying exactly? Because it's saying a lot of really poetic things. Let's be really real about this. She's looking at the back of the blank CD, or it's a burn CD. It's probably a burn CD. That's what I'm going to use because that fits best with my analysis of the framing. She is seeing herself within her music, and the reason why Peyton makes all of these CDs, the reason why Peyton loves the music that she does so thoroughly, the reason why Peyton's an artist, the reason why Peyton live streams herself is loneliness. She's the loneliest, most beautiful girl on the block. She's the loneliest girl in the world. And looking at the back of that CD, like music has failed her. Her interests have failed her. If her alternative punk interests led her to this point, of what use were those interests? Of what use was that identity? It wasn't. If it led you to this point, then the very things that you thought would save you, the very songs you thought defined you, the very subculture that you wanted to be accepted by has defamed you, has rejected you. And what does she do? She has to reject that in turn. Um, It's a very loud, emotional scene, and I think it's phenomenal. And she's looking for herself in songs. She's looking for herself in outsider groups, and the saddest thing is when she finds it, right? Because the show itself ends with like a George Bernard Shaw quote of like the worst thing that can happen to the heart is it getting broken or it getting what it wants, something like that. And she definitely experienced the pain of getting what she wanted, and she has to reject it. Places you have come to fear the most, well, that's burned on a CD. You have to relinquish that identity. An identity crisis. Oh my god, this show's brilliant. All right. Fucking, fucking Nathan and Hayley. One of my favorite dynamics on the entire show is Lucas and Hayley. I think that their friendship is wonderful, and we did get a bit of that this season, and I appreciated every scene that the two of them had together. I think they have a really good friendship. I love the two of them together. Hayley is the most immature, naive, selfish person in this entire season, possibly in the entire show. Just to remind those of you who might have forgot, this is the season where Hayley abandons her marriage to go on tour with some stiff, fucking obnoxious wannabe with spiky hair and a bad voice and fucked up lips and a weird looking mouth. I don't like Chris Keller, if you haven't noticed. He deserves to be punched in the face and might actually help with his physical appearance. He's a fucking ugly motherfucker. I hate him. I hate him. You're supposed to hate him, right? There's no possible way people thought this was a likable character or a half decent decision that was being made by Hayley to make out with Chris and then abandon her marriage that had only started like a month prior. It's absolutely selfish. I think Lucas believes it's absolutely selfish too. Nathan certainly does, but we'll get into him in a second. What the fuck, man? You want to talk about punishment? Well, there's a prime example of it. Lucas, I love his selfless virtue, his selfless human virtue. He would sacrifice everything to make those he cares about happy. You can't say the same of Hayley, can you? Hayley is the opposite. Hayley acts as self-obsessed as Dan does in this season, and I'm not falling for the writer's cheap little tactics. Hayley is a fucking bitch. And don't you have school, Hayley James? Don't you have school? Didn't school like really matter to you? Aren't you fucking tutor girl and you just abandoned school in your junior year? Are you stupid? God damn it, Hayley. I want to like you, Hayley. I want to like you a lot, but I only like you when it comes to your emotional capacity and expressions of friendship with Lucas. That's it. You're fucking awful otherwise. Nathan, I feel so bad for him this season. He put everything on the line. He made such a huge decision so young to get married to Hayley because he believed in her. And of course, it's a subversive part of the show that you would normally think that Nathan would be the one with the wandering eye, the one who gets bored first or fucks up first. But no, of course, it's inverted, which is fun. Yeah. But Nathan turns self-destructive and suicidal and deliberately smashes a race car against the wall because he wants to die. I can't believe there was a whole fucking race car episode of this show. Why not? Why not? That's the way things work here. Nathan, it was so sad seeing Nathan just lose himself more and more and more. It got tiresome, though, especially when he started lashing out on Lucas. It helped Lucas's arc because Lucas has to be disowned by everyone who cares about him eventually through this season. Lucas claims that he lost himself, but he didn't. He's the only character who didn't lose sight of the goal of existence through One Tree Hill. The goal of existence is virtue, and maintaining that virtue is the hardest thing you have to do as a teenager, as simply as a human being. The hardest thing to do is hold on to your virtue, hold on to those things that you can't help believing in, but they make you who you are. Holding on to your uh, intrinsic value, holding on to your dignity and your integrity. Lucas didn't lose himself this season. Everybody else lost their way. And Lucas is a brilliant punching bag for them because he is so morally sensitive. And I love him for that. But he was a very easy punching bag for Nathan. Literally did punch him in the face and just freaked out on him a lot. I feel so bad for Lucas. And I also feel very bad for Nathan. Like, I understand what he's going through. Hayley doesn't get my sympathies. I thought what she did was nothing other than betrayal, especially since you're talking to a person who thinks that yearning and striving towards fame is not only hierarchical, but it is antithetical to a new sincerity, to authentic existence, to a virtuous one. I think that self-obsession uh, and narcissism, I don't think that you could have fame without it. That kind of fame. Brooke, well, Sophia Bush is just fucking adorable. Uh, I love her. I love her. She had it easy this season, not gonna lie. She was in it a lot more than season one. I feel like she was given a lot more screen time. I think the concept, the love of Sophia Bush started taking off here. I mean, it's not as if she didn't go through some shit, but nothing compared to the punishment of everyone else. I mean, her punishment is like episodic, very easy to process and to get over, like episode to episode. But she was just so much fun. She's definitely the most fun character in season two. And I also don't like seeing Sophia Bush or like, I don't like seeing Brooke cry, which she does do a few times this season, and my heart can't take it. It's so sad and devastating and shit. But all things considered, her stories, when compared to Nathan, Hayley, Peyton, and Lucas, Brooke came out of this unscathed, to be honest. Like, fine. She was fine. She really wasn't that punished. You'd have to be a real twisted son of a bitch to punish Brooke, but I'm sure they will. We got plenty more seasons to dive into. Deb becomes a pill addict. Deb fucking sucks. I don't like Deb. I still think that Keith is the most unlikable character in the whole show. I'm Maria Menounos. What were you even doing on this show? I do like the idea that it's part of Dan's, oh my God, evil plan, master plan to destroy Keith. That's fun. It's fun watching him be destroyed. I don't like Keith. I think he's like the ultimate nice guy. He and Mouth, I don't like either of them. They can both get fucked for all I care. Dan, consistently entertaining villain. I love to hate Dan. I love Dan. Great villain. Great villain. This season ends with him being drugged and lit on fire in his office. What the fuck? Okay, fine. Sure, why not? Why not? I think he has to almost die every season or something. Fun times at One Tree Hill. Our new additions, a mixed bag, I would say. Felix and Anna, sister and brother. Anna's much more likable than Felix. Felix is a homophobic, toxic dirtbag who doesn't deserve to breathe the same air as Brooke Davis, and yet they became like fuck buddies. No, they became boyfriend girlfriend. I'm sorry. That's what they became. I couldn't have been happier as a viewer than when Felix walks in his final episode going, "They're gonna send me to military school." I'm like, thank God. Thank God. That's the best news I could have ever possibly heard. It's kind of sad to see Anna go. She was okay. She was okay. There was potential there for something more interesting to do with her in the future. Maybe she'll come back. I don't know. Felix can stay away for all the fucking good he does this show. It's so fucking bad. I hated Felix. He lost all of my respect the moment he like sucker punched Lucas like twice in two different fights. Get fucked, Felix. The writers honestly think that this fucking jockstrap with a half an IQ could actually challenge Lucas? No, 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 no. No, fuck off, Felix. Fuck off, writers, for even thinking that that was a valid avenue to explore. It wasn't. Felix, fuck off. Terrible actor, too. Season 2, it does put things into perspective from season 1. It's not punishment out of some sort of melodramatic kink acted out by the writers and performed by the actors. It's punishment with a purpose. It's punishment to aggressively realize and maintain your that which makes you good. Lucas is tested. I think he's testing himself and Dan is testing him. While he fails Dan's test, he certainly passes his own. You don't want to pass Dan's test, but Dan's test seems to be the measure of success in the ultra-modern, unpredictable post-9/11 society of Tree Hill. If you fail that test, then you might be a loser of capitalism. But even with his mom, Karen's new love interest, the billionaire from New Zealand, it starts off with an idea of opposing philosophies and even economies of thought. Since Andy, her New Zealand love interest, begins it off by going, greed is bad for business, actually. Greed is bad for life. Actually, self-obsession is bad for life, and what makes season 2 very interesting, it might be the season of greed. Um, there's a great amount of self-obsession that is being expressed by the characters involved, and some of the arcs necessarily lead to explorations of greed. Lucas was tempted in the first season and failed in a number of ways, but transcended in others. Like the whole point of One Tree Hill at the very beginning was transcending social limitations, challenging the status quo by being absorbed within it and helping it reach a new sincerity, transcending your archetype. And I think Lucas is doing really well at that this season. And the One Tree Hill writers, of course, are doing exceptionally, exploring how to make a new sincerity within such a rigid and isolating teen framework. We're being shown ways of how to be virtuous, and I fucking really respect One Tree Hill for that decision. But if you fail Dan's test, then you fail to be successful in the modern context of capitalism, of Randian capitalism, even. Yet this show is definitely an individualist show, but it's out of individual respect, right? Not of individual momentum. Dan is wrong. Dan is the devil. It's not a matter of perspective. You matter to evil, but evil doesn't have to matter to you. I thought that this season was really lovely. I think that there was a lot of really cool shit in it. Way better than I thought it would be. I guess I went into it thinking, it's gonna be even more amplified, even more wild and crazy than season one was. And it was, so I was already mentally prepared for it, but I wasn't prepared for it to get as sensitive as it was. It's a very hypersensitive show, and the sensitivities that were punished by season two, it made sense and it didn't feel like a mean-spirited thing that the writers were doing. There was a language to the punishment of One Tree Hill season two, and there was a heroism that I found within that. Lucas being torn down every single episode, even at the end where you think he's going to have a feeling of heroism. It's bittersweet because he does lose the battle with Dan, but he loses it in a way that he's able to desert that war altogether, because that war only helps to define your enemy. War only helps to humanize your enemy. War is unnecessary when your enemy is fighting for something that is invalid, something that is insincere. Lucas does not need to fight insincere battles anymore with his father. This is a show, as Brooke says at the very last episode, about phantom feelings. Like you can reach for a limb that isn't there anymore because it has been lost. Feelings that aren't there anymore, they still ache and they still tremble, and you still reach for them. You still try to soothe them every so often. And those feelings, those phantom ones, can also still be hurt. But the ghost of who you were, is always with you. Those phantom feelings, that's who you are. And if a war seems insincere, if your adversary is unmovable because your adversary is unfeeling, you don't want to be swinging at phantoms. You want to expose them for what they are. Dan may seem powerful, but Dan is vacuous. Dan is a void. He's a phantom father. And within Lucas, he's a phantom feeling. But he doesn't have to throb anymore. It doesn't have to break him anymore. Lucas doesn't need him. So yeah, season two is sending me into poetics, honestly. Because I found this season very touching. I want to be more like Lucas in this season. He stays so true to himself this season, in contrast to the first. In the first, he struggled with being sincere within a new social framework. In season two, he figures out, I mean, a new sincerity has been reached, but reaching a new sincerity and maintaining it are two separate struggles. And Lucas comes out on top, and One Tree Hill comes out on top. And managed to stay sincere in a world of hyper emotions, which is really cool. Peyton says, "Give me tragedy, because I wouldn't give it back for the world." I believe she says that about Jake. Jake is on the run. Fuck Jake. I'm over it. I'm over Jake. I'm not gonna talk about Jake. I just hope he stays away because he bores me every time he shows up now. Nikki is still the only thing I find interesting about Jake. I like Nikki. I know that's crazy, but I like her. Like I like those wrecking ball characters who destroy a perfectly good scenario. Nikki's cool. Jake is boring. Fuck them both. Peyton, better start making out with Lucas soon, because I am losing my patience. You guys belong together. Peyton and Lucas forever. And of course, these episodes, the episode titles and the cultural markers that One Tree Hill lays down, they continue to hit me in the face like a fucking baseball bat, stroking those phantom feelings within me. They're named after Atari's episodes, and Bright Eyes Records, and Dashboard Confessional is still blaring. It's still very much me. It's still very much everything about my youth. And it's a wild experience. Like I said, it hits me in the face like a baseball bat. And I'm there again. I'm 14 once more, and everything means a lot. And I'm struggling to find myself within it. I'm back to being a teenager again when I'm watching this. I'm looking forward to season 3 a lot. I'm so happy season 2 was as good as it was. It really, it was shockingly good. I still think those first, I don't know, one to handful of episodes, like 3 or 5 episodes. The first couple of One Tree Hill season 1 are still the show at its best. It's definitely its most grounded. But season 2, there's a lot of greatness once you're willing to accept its premise. If you go along for the ride, for the journey, then you're in for quite a great ride or journey. And the show's hypnotic to me. I fall under its melodramatic trance every single time. And I'm kind of low key obsessed with the show now. So, One Tree Hill. I've been enjoying my stay. We're going to have a lot of fun with this show. All right. That's all. Thank you for watching. See you at season 3.